Got some super swampy behavior we wanted to bring to you this morning. So at least 4 members of Congress have benefited from the small business loan program known as PPP. And frankly, could be a whole lot more, but we really don't know.
No idea.
Because there's no disclosure from the Trump administration. Saagar, the person who attracted the most attention here is Representative Roger Williams from Texas, who owns a chains of like car dealerships and car washes and auto body shops. One of the wealthiest members of Congress apparently got money for one of his car dealerships. And again, we don't know who else got money from the program they created, even as many small business owners were struggling to get funds and be able to keep their businesses afloat.
Yeah, I mean, so it's one of the themes of this show is the corruption is very bipartisan.
Absolutely.
So Roger Williams, and then we have Vicky Hartzler of Missouri, whose family owns multiple farms and equipment suppliers across the Midwest. On the Democratic side, Representative Susie Lee of Nevada, whose husband is the CEO of a regional casino developer, and then Representative Debbie, I want to make sure I say this right, McCarcel Powell of Florida, whose husband is an executive at a restaurant chain that has since returned the claim. So, returned the loan. So you can just see, and that's just the 4 that we know about. I think we talked about a representative in Virginia of Total Wine who was also not treating his workers particularly well, or making sure that they weren't getting the PPE, despite saying on the House floor that it was a disgrace. And this was a Democrat. So it's like, this just goes to show how when you have a Congress that is full of, many people who are basically plutocrats, that plutocracy is going to prevail.
And especially writing legislation for themselves.
And writing literal legislation for themselves, the richest and most powerful. It's not only that they answer their phone calls of the richest and most powerful, in many cases, they are themselves the richest and most powerful.
Well, and to make matters even worse, some of these individuals, Representative Roger Williams in particular, voted against transparency with the PPP program for any loans over $2 million. Interesting how that happens. By the way, we brought you earlier this week, but we wanted to show this to you again. Exchange between economic advisor Larry Kudlow and Jake Tapper on exactly this issue of the lack of transparency around this program. Let's take a look at that.
Well, look, I think in terms of those that shouldn't have qualified, a lot of them have returned the money, and some of those have been named. But I think when Secretary Mnuchin talked about transparency, he talked about the transparency of the process of making the evaluation for the loan and then the distribution of the loan. By the way, for what it's worth, the Congressional Budget Office just put out a report complimenting the Treasury and the administration for getting all these forms of assistance out in a very rapid time. There's been nothing like its biggest rescue in American history, and the efficacious distribution, the whole system, which is transparent. There is an IG that's going to watch over that. That's what the Secretary is talking about.
We have we will be reporting to the public. No, sir, I'm sorry.
Reserve.
He said we would report to the public. That's what he said. We will be reporting to the public. That's us, the American people, and we have a right to know where these tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars have gone. If there's no problem with it, if everything's fine with it, great. But otherwise, it is about as swampy a deal as I can ever imagine. The government giving out hundreds of millions of dollars, and the American people don't even get to know who got it.
Well, I don't know that I would judge it that way. I don't think it was sloppy. Again, I repeat.
Swampy.
Swampy.
Sloppy, too,
and
as I said yesterday.
No, and I love the way he's like, well, we wanted to be transparent about the process. No. We want to know who got the money.
As we did during TARP.
As we did during TARP. And look, transparency after the fact, after the money is all gone out, is like the least you could possibly hope for. What would have been better is if you had a program with no cap, if you backed payrolls instead of doing this approach at all. Like, that would have been the thing to really fight for on the front end. Now we're left, at least, we can have journalists like David Dayen and others who dig into the details here to know where this money went and in what ways it was inappropriately allocated. Because part of the story that we followed here, especially at the very beginning of this program, remember, this was all handled because the Small Business Administration didn't feel that they could handle it. So it was all essentially handled by the banks. what did the banks do? They privileged their biggest clients. They privileged the people who had already some of their existing loan products so that they could make sure that they get their loans paid back. And yeah, their biggest clients got concierge service on this, didn't have to jump through all the hoops that everybody else did. Apparently the members of Congress got the concierge service as well, while the rest of everybody else was left to wonder whether this would ever come through for them, have to lay people off, total uncertainty, closing their businesses, and so this whole thing just completely stinks.
Yeah, I mean, now they're just waiting for scraps, hoping that Congress will get its act together. Mitch McConnell saying that he wants $1 trillion, not $2 trillion, as the White House originally said. Always good to give less money in the middle of the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression.
The very least that you could ask for is transparency after the fact, but we're not even getting that.
Nope.
More Rising for you after this.